Tonight, in a jam co-sponsored by Cherry Halls, we bring to you tonight, live, the band Survival Sounds at the Lyricist Lounge. And it's a packed crowd, 80,000 people live in Shea Stadium. Tonight, we got Prince, Madonna, and the Perverted Flasher, the Midnight Cocoa Butter, porno tape watching, live, beaming down from Venus.
Flip the script.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Now sit down and shut up.
Where the beat go?
Am I the meanest?
Sure enough.
Am I the prettiest?
Sure enough.
Am I the baddest mofo low down around this town?
Sure enough.
Well, who am I?
Sure enough.
Who am I?
Sure enough.
I can't hear you.
Sure enough.
The Shogun of Harlem.
All right, folks, welcome back to Flip the Script. This is Shoji Ramuro. Just want to let you guys know, once again, for the millionth time, you can find us at the main podcast, I love that, the main podcast site, fts.podshow.com. You can also find us on MySpace, just like everybody else, at myspace.com/FTS Shinjuku. That's SHINJUKU, in case you guys don't understand how that's spelled. And then, of course, we're being shown off here, presented thanks to the folks at Old School Gamers Network, OSGnetwork.com. All right, I want to go ahead and start off with, of course, one of my always favorite topics is I want to talk to these guys about what is their favorite video game consoles. And, of course, I have to say mine, being old school myself, has to be Nintendo. The original Nintendo NES 8-bit system. Mainly because it was simple. And this was a system that, how do you say, every game you could possibly make on the system was genre defying. You guys never played Mario before until Nintendo came around. And just running sideways, jumping up, hitting bricks, jumping on mushrooms, blew our friggin' minds. You know, and it's like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then when you give a game like Zelda, once again, genre-defying, where never have I ever played a game like this, and of course all this brought to us by Shigeru Miyamoto, the man. And that's another great game. Other great Nintendo games like Wisdom Warriors was great. I don't know if any of you guys ever played this one, Battle of Olympus. Fantastic game right there, yeah. You guys played that one. Guardian Legends. There's some weird games that there were some good ones. Like I enjoyed Blaster Master. Yeah, Blaster Master.
Terrible. Yeah. How about Fester's Quest, man?
Fester's Quest.
I hated Sunsoft.
The Goonies 2. Even weird games like you already mentioned Fester's Quest, but wow, these things are based on TV shows I don't even remember even seeing before.
And on top of that, they made really good games based off of properties back then, unlike today.
Oh, good stuff, man. Any of you guys ever played Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah, Nintendo?
Yeah.
Rare, I didn't play it, but I saw it. Yeah.
Holy mackerel, what a fantastic game. Oh, you won't believe the stuff I played on Nintendo, man. But, wow, great memories of the NES system, but...
Rescue Rangers.
Yeah. DuckTales, Rescue Rangers. Well, I could just go on forever talking about all these great games. But I'll regress. I want to go ahead and pass it off to other people so they can mention what their favorite video game system. So whoever wants to take the mic and go first, go ahead.
I would have to say probably the one that is probably my favorite, and it's got a special place in my heart, is actually the Sega Genesis. What made the Sega Genesis great to me was the fact that everything seemed like it was just a lot more playable. It seemed a lot more fun.
It was the attitude.
Yeah, and it is actually the console that for all you guys that play the sports games, that was the sports game console that really actually made, like Madden Football and NBA Live and all those games. They seemed real, and they actually seemed very interesting to play because you know what? Playing those games outside of like Tecmo Super Bowl and whatever, they weren't that fun.
And pro wrestling on NES was excellent.
Well, that's true.
You are a winner.
That is true. But can we actually say that wrestling is a sport? I mean, in a lot of ways, can we say it's a sport, or is it just grown men in tights acting? I mean,
when it comes to actually being a video game, it's a sport.
Okay. I take back my comment.
It is more real as a video game as it is on television.
Okay, that is fine then. But
what I loved about the Genesis was that you can plug in your headphones.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Because that was the other thing. Because your mom would sit there, and a lot of times your mom would make you want to go to bed. You're supposed to go to bed. You got school tomorrow, and you're like, screw this. I want to play games all night. And instead of sitting there just turning down the volume, you can sit there, plug in your headphones, and have the same experience while you get no sleep and go to school the next day tired, and basically you have crappy grades for the rest of that semester. So, but
thank you, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Exactly, Sonic. The reason why I never went to a really good college, I just went to publicly run universities, was because of playing video games. But I'd have to say this.
And Shadow Dance, I remember that one.
Shadow Dan, yeah. I mean, it was just, I don't know. It was just kind of a cool time. It was basically one of those. Most of my friends and myself had the Genesis, so it wasn't like today where you basically have all the systems.
It's like the birth of trash talking.
Yeah, it really was. Right. I mean, because it would become like that.
The Genesis had the attitude already.
Yeah, right. But Super Nintendo in a lot of ways had far superior games.
That's not even a question. It's a fact. But I have to admit, being I'm a Nintendo boy. I grew up with Nintendo first, and all the people knocking my Nintendo, backing up their Genesis and Sega. I'm like, whatever, man. Nintendo rules. Sega sucks, and blah blah blah. But let me tell you, man. When I got a hold of a Genesis, wow. Everything changed. I love the Genesis myself. It's a fantastic system. Shadow Dancer, Strider.
Yes.
These games just opened my eyes. I'm like, wow, this looks a lot better than my 8-bit Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of a Nintendo guy too, because I grew up with the NES. But for whatever reason, we just kind of strayed over to, like you said, I think it was the attitude that it was just the way it was presented. Level. Yeah, exactly.
Mario was cool, but Sonic was badass.
Oh, he was. I mean,
MK was better on the Genesis though. Yeah.
Mortal Kombat.
It was better on the Genesis. You had the blood code.
ABACA.
Oh yeah. Right.
I mean, you remember all them codes, man.
Scary, man.
That's for
once again, folks. Check out Game Facts.
ABBA.
He's got all that stuff memorized, but I mean, any others? Anybody else?
Speaking about Sega.
Yeah, speaking about Sega.
When I grew up, I was a one system person too. I mean, I didn't think anybody made better games than Nintendo. Then I fell in love with the Genesis. But when the 32-bit wars hit, I mean, I owned a PlayStation, but I really fell in love with the Sega Saturn. And they had so many games on there. The biggest thing about the Sega Saturn, not only because it had a lot of 2D games on there, it was because of the import scene. It was just incredible. There was a lot of games coming out for the Sega Saturn that Sega of America would not allow to come out here in the United States. So imports, I had friends that imported games all the time, and I got to taste what import games were all about for the first time, and I was really impressed. There was a time where X-Men vs. Street Fighter, a popular arcade fighting game, could not be produced on any home system because the systems, they lacked the processor power, they lacked the power to run it. Well, the Saturn had an expansion port built in that you put a cartridge in, and it allowed an expansion for more powerful games to be run in it, and it was a neat addition to the system. And it was only released in Japan. The RAM cartridges that you needed to expand your games was only released in Japan. Therefore, X-Men vs. Street Fighter Arcade Perfect was only available in Japan. So for Americans to get it, they had to modify their systems and were forced to play games in Japanese. And being a fighting game fanatic, I got my fix on the Sega Saturn playing X-Men vs. Street Fighter and its sequel and some other games by
Saturn, the last bastion of 2D games.
Yeah, the last bastion of 2D games before we moved into the era we're in now. But who's up next?
I'll take this one. We'll keep the Sega train going.
What else is there? Genesis, Saturn. What could it be? The Sega CD?
Oh.
32X?
That's a fun size for the Sega CD.
32X. Ooh, that's
What else can there be? There's nothing
my
else.
God.
Oh,
The Nomad.
99. The Nomad. Oh man.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
No, my favorite was the Dreamcast. Biggest reason I think was it came out when I was 18, and it was it was the first system that my parents didn't buy for me. So I prepaid for it and everything, and just it was really good. It just didn't have the backing by a lot of the American companies, and I know that Sega of America didn't have their act together in terms of where they were going with the system. EA bailed out on them and stuff like that, but I would say that was the last bastion of 2D games to an extent. I mean, there were a ton of 2D fighting games, particularly Capcom games, that came out that were outstanding. But
That's a tricky thing there. Well, that's a whole nother topic right there.
yes, that's true. So we won't get into that. But also, I mean, the Rayman 2 was great. Resident Evil Code Veronica was outstanding.
It'll only take you a few minutes to name all the games.
Yeah.
No, there's only what 200 some odd games.
Yeah, but
that system came and died so fast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When you release a system a year before the system that ended up on the cover of Time magazine, it's kind of hard to.
But if you talk about the Dreamcast, you got to mention games like Shenmue.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Jet Set Radio / Jet Grind Radio. Love that game.
Yeah.
Soul Reaver.
Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur.
Soul Calibur. Oh my goodness
A
gracious.
game that
That's the
It still
game
gets
that
played.
slapped everybody's
If
face.
you own
Like,
a
this is what
Dreamcast
we were
and
able
you
to
don't
do.
have Soul Calibur,
Yeah.
you are mentally retarded. You have to have that game.
What makes that system so great is and I actually say even with the Genesis and even to the Saturn was a lot of those games you would go in there and you would never get frustrated. Like sometimes with some of the newer systems, depending on for whatever reason,
Got 10 buttons.
yeah, I mean they can be frustrating. And Sega for whatever reason did a pretty good job, just like Nintendo does. I think that those two companies did a really good job of actually making it where it is fun to play a video game where you're just not getting pissed off and throwing things at it.
Right.
And that happens with the PlayStation 2 and it happens with the Xbox.
And I don't know what happened in Japan, or what water or what crack they smoked over at Sega. I love the company dearly, and I've stayed with them even when that ship of theirs was sinking and burning. At this point in time, I'm sorry, but Sega's got to be some of the most stupidest people.
Oh God, yes. I mean,
right now in the industry, they made so many mistakes, and it's hard not to say that these mistakes are what cost.
They betrayed a lot
The
of
Saturn
games.
and the Dreamcast, they hurt a lot of people's feelings.